好，那我们现在7点已经到了哈，那我们今天的讲座就正式开始。
Michael is so happy to always on the same line with you and working really very diligently on the advancement of Asian Americans in our society. So therefore, can you tell us a little bit about your background, where you grow up, and how when do you come to the United States, and then how you get into the situation you are now?
Sure. It's always good to be on the same program as you. Thank you for your invitation, Sandy. Thank you, Bridge Road Foundation, for your invitation. And I guess I'll be using English, but I think, as was Sandy mentioned in the question and answer, I can speak Mandarin and Cantonese. And so we could do it in whatever language people prefer for the Q&A, but 大家好. Anyway, so my background is very simple. I was born and grew up in Hong Kong, and I spent my childhood and actually high school years in Hong Kong. And I came to the United States in 1975. And have been here since then. So over 45 years in the US. I came here as an immigrant. So my identity underwent quite a bit of change during the last 45 years. When I came to the US, I felt like I was Chinese, and not just Chinese, but specifically Chinese from Hong Kong. And it was really eye-opening and a journey for me to kind of see where I fit into this society as a Chinese American, if you like, and as an American. And so my first stage was really education. I was a student for a very long time, as was earlier mentioned, and hence I was able to get all the degrees. And then after that, I taught at the Anza College for 30 years before I retired. I led the Asian and Asian American Studies department. And so that's the second part of my journey, which is mostly in teaching. And then at the same time, I also had a career in civic engagement. My civic engagement career really was like a voluntary type of situation, running for election, as was mentioned, in Cupertino, first to the school board, served as school board president. And then in 1995, as the first non-white person, first Chinese, to be elected to Cupertino City Council, and eventually served as mayor in Cupertino for 2 times. So that's the second part of my identity. And then third part would be founding APALI, Asian Pacific American Leadership Institute, as was mentioned. And I have been doing that work for over almost 25 years. Next year is going to be our 25th year. And our goal there is to train both young people as well as adults for civic participation and civic leadership.
Wow, so it's really impressive in terms of your journey, and especially that you just move up very, very early into the school board and become president of school board, and then run for city council, where very few minority or Asian of non-white get into the city of Cupertino, and later on you become the mayor. In case for the audience and participants of today is not familiar with the geography of Cupertino, then we just have to advertise that the world's most valuable company, Apple, the headquarters is in Cupertino. And then they have a very impressive headquarters, which is like a spaceship. And then which is, I think, is really a symbol of success and status. So therefore, I'm very, very proud that you were, ever since 1997, become the mayor of Cupertino, but at the same time, you paved the way for Cupertino being with that kind of status. I'm very, very impressed. So, but however, during this time, what made you the decision that you said at the very, very beginning of your just coming here to you feel the call to get into civic engagement and actually run for a position for that? So what is your journey in making that move?
Yeah, I think I was lucky. When I came here, I had the opportunity to take classes in Asian American studies. And I learned about the history of Asians in America. And of course, most Chinese would think of Chinese American history, which at least goes back to the gold rush. So it's, you know, at least over 150 years and more. And also the history of other Asians in the United States. I think that was a very big eye-opener for myself. I think that for folks like us living in the US, if people have interest, they could invest a little bit of time to know about the history, because the history really gives us a not romanticized view, but a more realistic view of how being Chinese, being a minority in the United States, how have society treated us historically, and it puts a lot of things in context. It explains a lot of things. It explains sometimes how people treat us. So in the last 1.5 years or more, a pandemic, to me, it's not surprising that people pick on Chinese, pick on Asians, because if you look at the history of Asian Americans, people have always picked on Asians as the easy scapegoat, because we are relatively weak politically, and it is just a very easy scapegoat. And the problem with that is that for us, it's a practical issue. We have to face fellow students, we have to face, you know, acquaintances, we have to face strangers that may have unrealistic impressions or stereotypes of Asians. And so knowing that history helped to set some context for myself, how I need to survive in the United States and what I must do to try to thrive, and also how to make it a little bit better, not only for myself, but for the next generation. So I think a combination.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Anyway. Okay, so that's good. I thought my screen get frozen a little bit, but somehow it is you really talking about multiple steps. We're actually from surviving to thriving to make it better, and then it's necessary we have to pave the road for the next generation. So to start with, to immediately to pave road for our next generation when your children are young, and then you just want to have the school is a better a preparation ground for them. So therefore, basically, what you are doing is actually forward-looking to build a foundation. So therefore, the Chinese Americans, the Asian American can contribute to the society, and because our collective intellect and collective knowledge whatsoever could be a very, very strong building foundation and a building brick for the society. So therefore, if we do not really contribute, and then they actually, the society need our contribution in the civil area. So therefore, basically, is that something that you feel strongly about it?
Definitely, definitely. I think that we how we approach the society, what we deserve, right? So the stereotypes sometimes that other people have of us, and sometimes how we see ourselves also matter. Some people are just very grateful to be here and feel like this is not our society. You know, it's not up to us to participate. We don't really understand it. We might look down on it. We might make our living here, but we feel like, this is a crazy place and I don't want to get really involved, right? And so please just leave me alone, and I will try to be as invisible as possible. And I would not make waves, and I would, and hopefully people will leave me alone, leave my community alone. And if we're lucky, we would just be able to lead a very quiet life and not be too aggressive, not be too showy. And then other people may expect that of us too and say that, you know, it doesn't matter how long you've been here. Some Chinese are third, fourth, fifth, sixth generations. They still look at you and our children as foreigners, right? Because the face to them is like a foreigner's face. So it is problematic, I think, for people to envision us as foreigners when we're really not foreigners, to take away our agency and our power and limit us to what they think we deserve and what we can do. And a lot of times we also limit ourselves. The problem is that I would make an argument is that in the long run, in the end, it doesn't work very well, right? Because it's not very helpful to hide. When things happen, our community get compromised. People see us in certain ways and treat us in certain ways, talk to us in certain ways, sometimes decide on our future, whether we get a promotion or not, in certain ways. And I think that, you know, I think it's also a matter how we want to live, right? Especially the next generation, just having an income is not quite enough. I think people need to live with mutual respect, with some dignity. And so if people treat us in a way that is not dignified, to run away or to be as invisible as possible is a possibility, but I would argue that it's not the best way to deal with
it. Because the internet at my home is not stable, so therefore sometimes the screen gets freezed. But I really heard about you mentioned about we should not limit ourselves. We should be open. We should live with dignity. When you were the first city council of non-white at the ethnic, but the thing is that how quickly actually the mainstream America actually embrace you. So therefore, so what are the things you did that actually the mainstream and embrace you and elect you to be the mayor?
Yeah, so there are many ways to play it if you like. And that's the good thing about it. The way I played it may not be the way other people played. A sad answer to your question, Sandy, is that I don't know if they ever embraced me. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
in the end, I think, in the end, as I served, people would come up to me, and there were even people that would say to me, "You're the best mayor ever." I don't know whether they say that to everyone, but so I think I was accepted. Was I embraced? I did not. So everybody have their route to involvement. So political involvement is a specific kind of involvement, right? It's a little bit different from even joining a social club. Let's say you join the Rotary, you join the Kiwanis, right? That you want people to accept you in a certain way. In politics, the way I understand it, it has to do with being able to participate to make decisions for your community, right? And those decisions means how are you going to allocate resources, funding, spend the city budget? What's the priority? What do you see as the needs? Are all the constituents in the city being cared for? And so I did not get on city council expecting to be friends with everyone. I would like to have a working relationship. And so after my first initial involvement on school board, which arguably I learned the hard way, I learned that you always need 3 votes out of 5 votes. And so on city council, I was very successful because I always made sure I had at least 3 votes, right? So I didn't go on city council to make friends necessarily. I did have a good working relationship with all the other council members. I like to think that people learn to respect me, and we learn to work together, and I would support certain items, agendas of theirs, if they would support my agenda. I didn't go to the city and became the favorite candidate, if you like. When I ran in Cupertino, most of the people who voted were completely different from today, right? And I'm glad I've been part of that change. And back when I ran, most of the people who voted were really Caucasians. So I did spend my time going around. I probably should have to be their candidate, to make friends with them, and get the local establishment to really support me. So I am more of an example of an immigrant group that came to Cupertino. We saw new needs, new perspectives, and we wanted to contribute. Don't get me wrong, we were not, to some people, we look like we're very aggressive, but we're really not. I mean, most Asians don't need a lot, really. We don't need jobs for people. We don't need, we needed things more like, do you mind having table tennis instead of just racquetball? We need things. Could you expand the library instead of just spending money building golf courses? We need things like that. And so my example was more an example of mobilizing the Asian American community, the Chinese community. And we were very good at that. We mobilized, got everybody to vote. And so we came in from a position of strength, not going out begging for votes from the existing voters, but we created our own voters. And then we had a platform that appealed to other people, appealed to seniors, appealed to people who had children. We spoke to other minorities. There are various other small groups in Cupertino. So whether it be Latinos or Japanese Americans, we specialize in that. We just gathered all the people that people didn't want. we gathered all the other people and was able to motivate them. And we had, back in those days, we had a big volunteer force to go get out the vote. And so when I ran the first time, nobody paid attention to me. And I was not supposed to win. Not only did I win, I got more votes than the mayor that was running for re-election. And that was a complete surprise to people in Cupertino, at least people who pay attention to these things. And the first things they said is that you guys cheated. There must be voter fraud because, right? So this is not something they imagined that we would organize and just do it kind of the American way, because that's the right way to do it, right? Build your power.
Yeah. But anyways, moving on, actually, after you've been elected the mayor of Cupertino, you actually have the concept of Asian Pacific American Leadership Institute that you want to start. And then I would say, I believe you're not shy to talk to the chancellor of the university of the Anza College. And then actually by asking, you just get full support from it. So therefore, basically, if you feel something is right, you advocate for it, and then you rally for it, and people will support you. So therefore, basically, it's just you did mention about we should not be shy. We should not limit ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's important. This is to be on the right side of history, right? So everything we ask for is actually very sensible, right? We ask that, hey, let us participate more. Let us share the power with us. Let us have a voice. Let us participate in this democracy. Let us, we're not gonna take things away necessarily. So everything we ask for is really what a good citizen should be doing. And so, it's not completely impossible to find allies and find people that would go like, okay, we get it. We want to work with you. You deserve a chance. You deserve the part of our future. So yeah, definitely. If you don't ask, and it's always a no, right? So the worst people could do is say no, and then you can try something else.
So this is one example you just mentioned about. Number one is us do not just stay home and not the important thing is just go out and participate. And then very soon you find people will embrace you. At the same time, they allow you to contribute. And then you make a society and history proven that for those who are enthusiastic, for those who have a lot of motivation among us, especially myself is a first generation immigrant. And then as long at the very beginning, I'm just timid. But as soon as you find out, if you really make the first step, you're able to make the next step, and then things will build up. Just like APALI for the last 20-some years, you actually built it gradually, but steadily. Can you tell me about explain a little bit about APALI, the Asian Pacific American Leadership Institute?
Good. Yeah, sure, of course. So APALI is really based on my experience in involvement, right? So as I mentioned, I come here as an immigrant, and so I feel like there's a lot of things I don't know, and I was curious, and I got involved, and I took advantage of the American system, which is actually very open, right? It doesn't pay. So that's the first thing people need to understand.
All right.
Most political positions, especially for Cupertino is actually considered a medium-sized city, but it's actually very small, right? But in American standards, it's a medium-sized city. You don't get paid when you're on city council. Okay, they give you a stipend. Who knows how much? It's probably $600 now. Right? That's not even enough to go, to a few dinners even. But so that's not a way to make a living. right? So you don't go into politics to make a living. You don't go into, so you go into it, and then it gives you a chance to participate, right? So based on that, I found out one thing about America is that, as people already know, in China, everything is incredibly centralized. And so there are many advantages of that, and there are shortcomings of that. The United States, in a way, is the opposite. Everything is completely decentralized, right? So one school district can do something different from the next school district. One city can do something different from the next city. One state can do something different from the next state. And the American spirit is to be as individualistic as possible, right? So everybody can do their own thing. Whatever you think is right, you know, America, at least in the ideal, or one of the ideals, is to allow you to do your own things, right? If you don't want to get a vaccine, well, you know, some states say you don't have to. You don't like to put on a seatbelt, you don't have to. You don't want to wear a helmet, you don't have to, right? So there's lots of choices like that. So incredibly, the American system is set up such that for many of the levels, even any level, right? It's almost like anybody can participate. Anybody can, the bar is very low. So when you run for city council, they never ask you, what grade did you finish? What was your GPA? What kind of degree did you get? You know, nothing like that, you know? Maybe they care whether you've committed a crime or not, but the bar is incredibly low. But you just need to get enough people to believe in you. You could be an actor, you know, you could be someone who's never had public office, and you can become president of the United States. So it's incredible like that. And so people can, who are interested enough, can take advantage of that, right? So there's multiple entry points for that. Now, so what APALI does is to say that, okay, we are interested in helping people, whether it be young people, youths, college age, high school, upper class high school, juniors and seniors, adults, after college, 30 years old, mid-career. We have different programs tailored for you. The only thing you need to have is an interest in civic participation. So we say that, hey, this is probably, for most people, you know, this is somehow important to you. Maybe it gives you a sense of identity. Maybe it gives you a sense of satisfaction. Maybe this is how you get respect from other people. Who knows? But the motivation is usually internal, psychic, if you like. Some people feel like we just have to do this to give back or to make the world better. And then what we do is very simple. We try to give them the best program we can. So we really work at our programs. And we have 3 separate programs. One in general for youths, which is our summer program, Youth Leadership Academy, for college age and high school juniors and seniors. So that's our basic program, people to explore their identity. Yes. Who do they want to be in America, right? You know, do they want, it turns out we make an argument that who you think you are determines what you do and how you do it, right? And we feel that people should be given the space to think about the question, who are you? It sounds a little bit existential. They need to have some ability to learn about the history and experience of Asians in America so that they could kind of make sense of things. So a lot of students, they don't know why their parents were treated like that. They don't understand why sometimes there were unpleasant experiences. They don't have a context for that. They don't understand why their parents talk to them like that, come home and say things. So one part is to give enough information so that they can decide who they want to be. So they can want to be, I don't think they can be a white person. I don't think they can be a black person, but they have some choices. They can think of themselves as 100% American and have not much to do with being Asian. And of course, we have people like that and say, hey, I have this face, but I'm basically like a white person inside, right?
Yes.
You know, and I don't like my parents trying to make me what I'm not, right? Or they could feel like, oh, I'm actually very Asian. I'm very Chinese. And I don't know if I feel I was born here. I don't know if I'm American. I think that's pretty sad too.
Mm-hmm. So I think basically it's just you're encouraging yourself, your friends, and then the people surrounding you that actually in the United States we have to participate, because unless we participate, we're not paving the road for our future generation.
Exactly. So and so just to finish my thought there. So what we do is to provide a good program, the best program, you know, quality program that would give information. A lot of people don't know what civic engagement is. What are nonprofits?
So therefore,
what do they
people
do?
would,
What's government like? What's it really like? So part of it is just giving information, having people talk with people who graduated from our program. We have as you know, Sandy, a big network of alumni. We have over 500 alumni that are civically engaged.
That's wonderful.
We keep people,
Michael, can you see me?
I can see you and I can hear you.
Okay, this is exactly I want you to talk to the audience. This is 4 years ago that I attended APALI's function. 120 examples of the graduates from the APALI that's under 40. So therefore, I just want to say, how about this page?
Yeah, so this is what we did. We had 120 alumni who are civically engaged in different sectors. This is the public sector, which is government. We also have nonprofit, we have education, we have corporations.
And then you have this. And then the important thing is we need example in every sector, like this in different thing. And then in the area of education, and then in the area of nonprofit, and then in area of all the different type in the private sector, that you created a lot of leaders. I think the important thing is, if you embrace it, you are able to get into important positions in the society. So therefore, do not limit yourself.
Absolutely.
I think that is very inspiring from you.
Thank you. So the idea is not only training, but after the training, right? So it's like an alumni association, right? So some colleges, right, have very strong alumni groups. We have very strong alumni groups. And our whole point is to bring back the alumni to talk about their experiences and speak with people who are in our training programs, and keep everybody networked and keep everybody supported. And you're completely right, Sandy. As I mentioned, the contradiction is this. Almost in every sector, Asian Americans are poorly represented in leadership. So as you know, half of Silicon Valley workforce is Asian. But you and I know some number of people who are executive officers, whether it be CEO or vice presidents that are Asian Americans. And they said that, you know, the number of Asian American vice presidents in the major companies is actually not more than 20 years ago, right? The situation has not, percentage-wise, has not improved that much, even though half of us, right? And an earlier generation, as you know, Sandy, all the Asians had to kind of leave their company to open their own company. right?
Yeah.
Because they hit glass ceiling. But the truth is in every sector, college, California's college, UC is maybe a third Asian, CSU is a third Asian, but we only have a couple of presidents, college presidents that are Asians. There are more Black, Latino college presidents than Asian college presidents. And it's every sector, whether it be from police to military to education, things that we're supposed to be good at. Once you start counting, we are just not in the leadership positions. And so whatever we could do to help overcome some of those blocks, APALI's goal is to help people overcome those blocks.
Yes. So therefore, basically, you did mention about at least we should have equal representation, and there's a long way to go. But somehow it's just even though that there's several things, we have to be awakened among ourselves. We have to be participatory, and then we have to dedicate ourselves. Unless we go outside our comfort zone, it will be very difficult for us to have really breakthrough. That if we do not do anything, we're not paving the road for our next generation. So therefore, basically, my next question to you is this: how important are role models that we really need to promote, and how important are the mentor-mentee system can bring out more people to participate and successful?
The role models are useful as inspiration, right? So when people go and see somebody and they say, oh, maybe I could, well, for me, when I ran and I won the election, a lot of Chinese Americans in Cupertino, they met me and they looked at each other and they were talking to each other, feeling like, well, he could do it. Of course I could do it too. You know, it's like,
okay, all right.
It must be a lot easier than I thought, right? If this guy could do it. So that's what role models does. Role models say that, yeah, it's possible.
I lose count how many more city council getting inspired that if Michael Chang can do it, I can do it. How many more city council people have get elected? Chinese Americans get elected in the city council after you.
Oh, in Cupertino, Chinese Asian Americans, sometimes the majority of the city council. That's one of the legacies I made sure. A lot of them are actually APALI alumni. In the current council, out of 5 people, we have 2 that are alumni. So we don't even talk about things like that. Among the cities in Santa Clara County, in the 15 cities, we probably have 3 or 4 cities that have mayors that are APALI alumni right now.
So therefore, basically, role model becomes very important because without the first one to make it,
right? A source of information. They've walked the walk, and so some things, when it's just like in the entrepreneurial world, right? When you tell people don't do that, right? It means something, or that it's not going to be easy, or if you give some people some tips, insider information is very important, right? And so role models are important. But
on the other hand, you have a lot of people who happen to be successful, but they are really very selfishly actually help out the newcomer. So therefore, it becomes almost like a guidance person, or basically a mentor and mentee situation happens.
Yeah, we try to actually promote many different kinds of people. There are certain criteria we do look for, right? People can be civically engaged for the right reason and for the wrong reason. So we try to help the people who we feel have the right reason, have the right vision, right? They're just trying to look for a job. If they're kind of just want power, they don't have vision. Or maybe they are really regressive, maybe, so So who you promote actually makes a difference, and that's what we've learned, because we've had people come to APALI because for people who know APALI, being part of the APALI network actually means something. And so now then we have this responsibility to make sure the people who goes out and say that I at least had some of my training from APALI, that we could vouch for them. So that's a value question. And as you say, because I'm an immigrant, I'm more interested in folks that care about the community. A lot of people, some people may want to be civically engaged, but they don't really connect well with immigrants. They just say, oh, I was born here, I'm an American. I don't really like being Chinese background, maybe even. And so when I become an elected, I just want to specialize in different things, but I don't, I don't feel very close to the immigrants, and I don't really care for them. I don't really like them, maybe even. So those people are completely, they have their right to exist. If they get elected, we work with them, but they're not our favorite people, as you could imagine.
So basically, you consider the compassion and care, and then have an urge to help the community better. Those are the good quality that you really seek from somebody who wants to represent people in the city council and make the government a better place. So therefore, basically, you do have those training courses, not only that you train their character, to let them to really seek their character and find the goodness in the character. Also, at the same time, you just give them the skill set on how to organize and get elected. Because in 1918, I attended a kind of ad hoc kind of celebration of one class that you did, because that is an election year.
Right.
And then out of a small class, more than 10 people get elected in that class. Then can you talk about it?
Yeah, that was a good year for us. They're not all from one class. They're from our alumni. So we have over 500 active alumni. And that year, a lot of people ran for office. And those are not easy offices completely easy to run for. They ran for Mountain View City Council, Sunnyvale City Council, Saratoga City Council, lots of school boards and so on. 10 of them.
I remember one for Gilroy.
Yeah. So it was it was great. It was very encouraging. 10 of them got elected, and it can mean different things. That people, as a group, they all had strong backgrounds. They all was not just by luck. Sometimes you can even get in just by luck. Most of these were not by luck, because actually people have to realize winning an election is just the first part. Serving and being effective is the hard part, right? And then so to serve well, you have to have a vision. To have a good vision, you actually have to understand. You have to, going back, you have to understand the community's history here. You've got to understand, sort of race relations in America. You've got to understand development policies right now. You've got to understand a number of things. And you've got to be resourceful and creative so that you're not just saying, oh, I'm for the community. I'm for the community. But you can actually think of how do you make that into a policy, right? What would you do, right? And you can also see what the pros and cons of a policy, right? And so those, so the motivation, the vision, and the skills, and the policy savviness. It's like, oh, right now, we really need to pay attention to this. This is what our city can do in terms of serving our immigrants better, right? What is that going to be like, right? What is that specific policy going to be like? What's really needed at that point? So that takes imagination. Then.
Oh yeah, that's so important, because a lot of people just want to say, what a process for me to get more power. But somehow your emphasis is the power have to come on from your own goodness in heart, your intelligence and your care about the community, and your motivation. If the motivation of really building a better community is not there, even though you know about the process and then you know about the methodology, but that doesn't make you a better serving person. So therefore, basically, I really admired in your class, the first thing is have everybody search their inner self to say why you want to do it. If you're very convincing that why you want to do it is actually you want to improve the livelihood of the people, then your own integrity come out loud and clear, and then will make you a believer person that you can get vote. So therefore, basically, I just really admire winning through original. I thought, oh, these are the methodology. This is how to raise funds, and this is how you're going to beat up your opponent whatsoever. But somehow, your first thing to emphasize, find out the goodness in your in oneself, and then the dedication, and then the really wish that the community would be a better community. And once that is coming out, people will believe you. So, and then you believe in yourself. So therefore, basically, I was very moved because of you did mention about getting elected is the beginning to serve, and then the serving heart.
Right. And I think that, going back to what you mentioned earlier about getting involved, I don't think that because being involved, depending, right? So Betty asked the question, what's the difference between civic engagement and politics or something like that, right? So there are many kinds of civic engagement. Some people feel like every week I want to spend 2 hours picking trash. That's a civic engagement. Every week I want to spend 2 hours with my favorite nonprofit and do a volunteer. That's definitely civic engagement. That's excellent, right? So in APALI, we always emphasize people have to discover what's right for them. Politics, you have to respect the politics because it takes a lot of time and work and knowledge too, to do it well and to do it with not only success, but impact and positive impact. So there are many levels of doing it, right? And so I think what we can do, what we try to promote is to find people who can develop an interest. So I always use myself as an example. And I always say that, hey, when I came to the United States, I didn't know anything about America, not really. And most of what I know turned out to be not quite accurate anyway. But I was lucky because I was a student, and being a teacher, you're always a student. And so I can always position myself as someone who would always want to learn. And I think that is a strategy that's useful for minorities because there's something new to be learned all the time. So what I'm trying to get at is that is to say that it's not that hard if you're interested, right? It's just like people who are interested in doing certain things. To them, it's not that hard, right? It's, some people are interested in certain sports. It looks very dangerous and difficult to me, to them, it's worthwhile. And politics is not really that dangerous in the United States. I learned that early on. We haven't had political assassinations for a long time, and definitely not on the lower level. So you don't lose your life, right? And so what you're playing with, you know, that's not a bad bottom line. And but you have to have people who think of it as a challenge. Say that, hey, I'm an immigrant here, but I think I have something to offer. I don't know that much, but I can learn, and I can keep learning, and I can keep bettering my game so that I could have lasting impact, make it better and better and better. So you have to, if you have a strong interest, then you're willing to spend the time. You're willing to spend the effort. And you know, because you're ready for people, half the people like you, half the people don't like you. Most of the people don't know you. You know how to deal with the power. You know how to deal with the stuff. You see it as a personal challenge, maybe. And yeah, so I think that's what we need to develop in our community in general, whether it be young people, old people. Some young people come to me and say things like, I want to be governor. I want to be president. To me, that's kind of, it's not the right thing. You know what I mean? It doesn't impress me. How can you want to be something that, especially if I find out that they haven't invested any time finding out what it means, what it's done. So in the past, we even say this, in the past when people want to run for office, we grab them because Asian Americans, it's hard to find people who wants to step out to run. Now, a lot of people want to run. And so people come up to me and say, I want to run for office. Now that doesn't impress me anymore because the bar has risen. So the next question people always ask, okay, good. So what do you bring? You know, why would you be effective? And what do you want to do, right? Very simple questions that make sense, right? And so I think we need to continually raise the bar. We are so far, we are, forgive the analogy, I think Asian Americans are still elementary schools. At elementary school. No, we're not in graduate school, we're not necessarily in high school. I think we're still in elementary school.
Well, anyways, this is what this is towards the end of my my session. But somehow you did mention about the we need to be prepared, and then the you know, at the APALI, where thousands of people already went through the program. That means we have many people already get elected. But however, to go up to the top, it's like a pyramid. We need a very large foundation. And then when people move up a step, and all the way to the top, and maybe the president of the United States someday. And then it is necessary for, as we need mass and we need the contribution, we need a lot of people to participate. And then we do have a Chinese Americans in the United States is more than 5 million people. And the Asian Americans is about 23 million people. So therefore, together, I think we could be a formidable force. I think in less than 20 years, we will have 40 million Asian Americans. And then if we united together, it could be a big foundation for a big pyramid. And maybe someday we can keep going up by step, we will get to the top of the pyramid, and that is something that we will be the influencer, and then the people that make a difference in the United States and then make it a better United States of America.
Yeah, that's a great challenge, right? Whether we could add it all up, right? So
yeah. But anyway, you've been investing more than 20 years in the APALI. You've been in making yourself an example for the last 30 years, and then up to now, you're still hoping and you're still encouraging, you're still carrying on the good work. And then we need a lot more people like yourself, Michael. I thank you very much for this interview. And then I will just bring it back to the Wenyuan, and then maybe he can help the participants of this program, and then have more communication with you, and then maybe I'll ask you a few more questions as a participant. Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Your time
Thank
is
you,
really
Sandy.
appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. So 接下来哈，就说我们非常感谢就是两位哈，就是有个很精彩的对话。那我们的观众呢，就是说你们也可以，我们接下来就是一个互动的环节哈，就是说你们如果有什么问题的话，可以用这个 Zoom 的 Q&A 啊，把这个问题放在 Q&A 上面，或者呢，你们可以把你们的问题放在这个Chat Window 里面啊，那中文、英文都没有关系啊。那我们就请观众们啊，再提一些问题哈。So yeah, I guess your conversation is really good, and as Sandy mentioned, Michael, you are a role model for all the followers, and after your being the mayor, and then we have a lot of Asian Americans to become city council, school board members, mayors, especially like Cupertino. We have like, I think more after you, more than like 2-3 Chinese mayors, right? Many.
Oh, yeah.
Many more.
Yeah, so you have a Ph.D. in education, and then you took the career of like being a professor.
At APALI. For questions, I want you to talk about the hate crime and then to advance people. Can you mention the kind of explain the efforts and the support from politicians from all over Bay Area, and then how that is getting along?
Right. So APALI, we started a new initiative during the pandemic, right? And this was right after the shooting in Atlanta. So first of all, I didn't mention, but APALI has a network of elected officials. We have over 100 elected officials in our network who are currently serving. Then of course, there are many others that are already retired. So you serve terms, as you know, and so we also have a very large group of retired electeds, myself included, right? So we gathered the current electeds right after the shooting to process, right? So elected people are no different from you. They're just people who've stepped up. You know, they have their day jobs, usually something else, you know. And so at that time, there was a need to process both their emotions, it's like people were shocked, right? And then a chance to talk to each other. And so that's what APALI does well. We gather people, we give them a chance to talk to each other, just like in this forum. If people are interested in this whole area, people can exchange and listen and feel supported. So that's what we did for them. And then because they are elected, they are also in a position to do something from their elected positions. And so from there, we started a new APALI initiative, which is based on the idea that it can't be just the community. It can't be just community giving out whistles, doing training. We need government to be part of it. And government can establish policy, can give funding, can coordinate, and do it. Government has many tools, right? And so we find that our electeds also need support. So what we've done is we formed a support group made of community organizations, and we've gathered the electeds together to be partners, coalition partners, and we meet periodically for them to update what else they are doing. So for the first round, everybody passed these resolutions, which is good. Resolution is a position, right? We are against hate. We will persecute. If people are hateful, stop doing it, and just keep people. But then what? Now they're looking at other things. Oh, we're going to have a forum to talk about it. We're going to have put some funding into addressing stereotypes. We're giving training to our city or school staff. So there are many steps, and this is meant as a long-term project so that it's not like, oh, people are pushing Asian seniors, so we pay attention. And then a little bit after that, nobody pays attention anymore. So this is meant to go on, a number of years, because we all know that unfortunately, in the kind of society that we live in the United States, if you're seen as a minority, a weaker person, that might be of a different religion, might be a Hindu, you might wear a turban, right? Or you might be Black, you might look dark-skinned, you're Asian, people think that you're gay or something, somebody's going to be unnice to you. And so that's just a fact of life that we need to respond to in ongoing fashion. And APALI's strength is supporting elected officials to encourage them, to support them in what they're doing here and say that, yeah, we like it when you do things like that. So you have our support.
Yeah. When you went, I actually picked through a comment from the participants of tonight. Mm-hmm. And then basically I want to ask, rephrase a little bit. It's just among the Chinese Americans, what would it take? Are we together enough? Are we, when, how are we going to be strong enough? For example, the Jews are very much supporting each other, and then they're pretty powerful United States.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the
chat. How do we gather ourselves stronger?
Yeah, I see there's a few questions in the chat. I'll try to address some of this.
Sure.
So the Jews, so every minority are similar and different in ways, right? So that's what I believe, right? And so, so they have assets that we don't, and we have assets that they may not have too. So I am always a strong believer that everybody have to find their own way. What can we learn from them? I think we can learn from them that they are very sophisticated. So the kind of questions, so being in mostly, the approach we take is more of an education approach. It's educating our community approach, trying to always raise our level. And the story of a Jewish parent is this, right? So this is just a story. Other people might have heard it. Jewish parents are supposed to have asked their children when they go to school, right? They don't ask necessarily, what grade did you get? The best Jewish parents, it is said, would say, what question did you ask in school today? Did you ask a good question? So the idea there is that unless you ask a really good question, your answer may not be that important. So I think Asian Americans are still trying to ask a good question, right? So we're always trying to ask, what's a better question? What's a better question to ask? Because if we ask a better question, our attempt to answer it would be more effective, would be more impactful, right? So the Jewish Americans, they have people everywhere. They're very strong in media, as people know. They're very strong in Hollywood. They're strong academically. They're strong in many of the spaces, right? They're strong politically. A lot of people run for office throughout. They tend to be more unified through, sort of the issue of Israel, right? And so on and so forth. So there are definitely things for us to learn from them. They're very good at challenging themselves. So the story that other people might have heard is that a group of Jewish people would sit together, and then somebody would say, I think this is a really worthy cause, and I think we should support it. I'm going to give $5,000. Who else over here will give 5,000? So they're not afraid to do things. They're known to be very blunt like that and confrontational like that. They would go around the table. So they use peer pressure very well. I don't know how well Asians use peer pressure. Maybe in a different way, but this is not. So a lot of times people, so if you ask me what we could learn from them, they have a lot more maturity, obviously, whether in politics or involvement, because they know the score. A lot of Asians don't know the score. New immigrants don't even know how precarious Asians can be in this country. So last year when we had the pandemic, a lot of people opened their eyes. They go, and then for the first time, they were saying things like, I couldn't believe it. I went to the store. I'm a CEO of a company. I can't believe this is what they did to me. And it's like, where have you been all this time? So their eyes are open. I don't know if that's a temporary opening or not. Some people, because that's not an easy thing to look at, especially if they don't intend to do something about it. So human nature sometimes go, okay, and then they forget about it. It's easier not to think about it. So if you ask me about Jews, they teach us that you always have to think about it. You always have to, some people have to think about it. Other people can be supportive in different ways, but at least don't pull people down. Don't stop the people who are thinking about it. So don't say to people that, you're thinking too much, you care too much, you should just be like me. Let's just play some more golf. Let's, all that. So anyway, if you ask me for an answer, that's what I would say. Somebody asked about student leadership. So this is just my take, for whatever it's worth. So these days, a lot of people talk about leadership in youth, and some people try to make money out of it. And so a lot of people have asked APALI 20 years ago, why don't you have these teach people how to talk, right? Make them a great speech giver. And we'll have these contests, and we'll charge them money, right? And so on. I think that's good to a certain level, being able to speak is important. But it's a good question because you need a lot more than just that, right? You really need people to want to learn, to have vision, to have good content, to know what they're talking about. So some people can give a good speech, but they absolutely don't know what they're talking about, right? Or maybe they don't believe in what they're talking about. So if they go to a group of Chinese Americans and ask for support, they might say, I'm all for Chinese American, community advancement, and I really want to be a voice for Asian. Then you ask them more questions like, what does that mean? What are you going to do? Do you have any good ideas? and then they don't have any good ideas. So students who have leadership, it boils down to, again, this is very personal and just take it for a grain of salt. This is not objective. I'm looking for people who care about the future of Asian Americans. I'm looking for people who have that something in there about how they have a healthy view of their identity. They don't want to be second class. And they are smart about how they could promote themselves and promote their community. I like people who are strategic. I like people who take initiatives and try, and people who can weather failures. Because let's say if a person really goes into politics, there's a lot of failure. And so you've got to be really strong internally. You really need to know what you're doing. So I think the qualities of leadership, if they're leading other people, they should have a way. What I learned is that in the United States, I never tell people that I have a Ph.D. because nobody cares, right? I never tell people I graduate from Stanford because truthfully, nobody really cares, right? So you should be able to influence people, and people should be able to say, huh, what this person says, I'll think about it, right? And you can have some influence. That would be leadership. So that combination of knowing yourselves, knowing where you want to go, being able to connect with other people and play together. Chinese can play by themselves and can create a company. I don't know if we can really play together that well to do something. Those are very elementary pieces, but I don't think there are shortcuts. You have to get through those elementary pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. You mentioned a few like leadership skills. That's really good. So Sandy also mentioned that since you've been elected to the mayor and you inspired many Asian Americans to come out, step up, and run for public offices. So see, you have the Ph.D. in education, and you took the career of as a professor in the college. So, what triggers you to come out and run for public office, and what challenges did you have at that time, since you are the first Asian Americans to run?
Well, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but in a nutshell, it depends. This is very personal. It depends people's experience. I always felt that people, and does not matter how much money you make, right? Mm-hmm. In some places, in too many places, or there's too many possibilities when Asians are seen as nobodies, right? When people don't even consider them, right? Right? When people are promoting people, they don't even think about certain people. That just rubs me wrong, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a combination of seeing that as and that makes sense. When you're a minority, of course, people don't know you, people don't understand you, and people disadvantage you without even wanting to try it, right? So a lot of bias, as we know, is unconscious, or it's just ingrained into us, whether our bias against women, right? Unless you're a woman, right? Men really have to really work hard to see them, right? And a lot of men don't realize it. They just think it's normal. It's like, oh, I never thought about you. Oh, I never thought you'd be interested. I never, you know. So it could be the big things, it could be the small things. A lot of young people care about the microaggressions. People just treat it a little bit differently. So some of us, especially immigrants, we kind of say, oh, we're immigrants, so I don't care how people treat me. You can treat me with disrespect, and as long as I respect myself, that's okay. And that works for some people. Other people go like, well, that has no future, right? You know, somebody have to step out and say that, no, that's not really good. You have to pick your fights. And so I'm more for like, since I teach about Asian American history, right? Asian American community. So I have to talk about, yeah, you know, you have to make a living, but a lot of young people, especially, making a living is not enough, right? Existing with self-respect is something, right? That people, you know, so it has to be you know, all those things together. Right?
Yeah. Okay, we have a question from Leah, the audience. So what's a good start to be involved in politics before one runs for public office? Should start with helping the campaign or those things?
No, this is a great instinct, Leah. This is, your instinct is right. Helping with campaigns is an important entry point, right? So there's a certain technique, right? A campaign is just a job process. How do you get the job? So in a corporation, you might get a job a certain way. You might need other people to say nice things about you. Here, a campaign is also getting a job. And unfortunately, and this turns a lot of people off in terms of how we select people. The campaigns are not that hard, actually, to tell the truth. There's certain things to know, especially low-level campaigns, which is where most people start. Most people don't start with high-level campaigns. Low-level campaigns, if you can get people to help you, work for you, volunteer for you, you need 30, 40 people, volunteers, you have a platform, you have some assets, right? You can, and then seeing the mechanics of other people, it's not that hard. Unfortunately, campaigns are like a beauty contest. That's basically what it is, right? And so there's a certain science to it. It's not that hard, right? People spend maybe 1 minute, right, on a local campaign and look at your brochure and say, oh, this guy, also an Asian running. Oh, looks like it's got a nice family. And they're all for education. And I like the story. And why not? Okay, yeah. Other people, you might have to have something a little bit more, right? If you're interested, you can, of course, APALI, we're recruiting for our adult class. We're going to start recruiting next week. So that's something you should look into. You can email me. I'll put in my email here. And you can check it out. And so that prepares you in a more general way, right? Because getting elected is just the first step, right? You gotta want to do it. You gotta, that type of thing. You can pay attention to other people's policy, right? So depending, we could talk more about it. You can check out the APALI website, right? And I can certainly tell you. So different people have their own style, have their own way. APALI is all about helping people promote their own way, find their own style, find their own value, and see if it's right for you, And some people decide to specialize. Some people, in the end, decide to specialize and say, you know, I don't really, a lot of people don't really like to be elected, as you already know, right? So for somebody who's willing to consider it, that's amazing. That's really wonderful, right? Okay, that's where we start. A lot of people really specialize in other things. I'd like to produce people that specialize in helping other people get elected. They say, hey, I don't see it in myself, but I like to volunteer for campaigns. And when people succeed in their campaign, I feel like I've really done something, right? So different people have different skills. And so we always emphasize there's a lot of different roles. There's so many roles. Finding what's satisfying to you, what's challenging, what's satisfying is the most important. Let's see. I don't know. Are you going to ask me the questions, or do you want me to look at it, the chat and try to answer some questions?
Well, yeah. Well, I can relay the questions.
Okay.
I think there's one from AIHAC. The question or the comment is Andrew Yang was failed in vote for election for the running for New York mayor. So what's your advice or ideas for his next try in his next campaign or his next running?
I don't know.
What do
a
you
lot of people
see
have opinions.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure.
I do have an opinion.
Yeah, let Sandy talk about it. Sandy is much more closer to that campaign. Yeah.
No, actually, it's I think it's Andrew is popular among the national interest, or how are we going to deal with the onslaught of a new that we call the fourth industrial revolution. And then at the very beginning in New York, everybody feel that it's a very important issue. But however, in city politics, there are other important issues that it's not concerning about the future of the United States. They rather say the police welfare, and then the public safety, and then the port authority, and then the who's going to collect garbages. And then all of a sudden, when the emphasis into the city management, and that becomes a concern of the citizens, then all of a sudden it switched completely away from what is good for the United States in the future. So therefore, and then in the citywide election, is very much your daily livelihood. How are you going to make your life in this city better, rather than what is the future for the country? So therefore, basically the platform from city election to the state election, it's all very, very different. So when you have that, a city election, it will be something that you have to go through. Let's say if you have a education platform, and then you must have done something for the education. If you have certain, say, I'm a citizen, these are the things that is necessary for the city, then in such a case, experience becomes very, very important. Therefore, is just basically is just the how do you really work through the political atmosphere? Is have to be, everything had to line up, and then your platform and your belief become relevant. So that becomes the challenge there is. But I really don't think in politics, lots of people went through multiple campaigns, and then finally the example, Richard Governor California, he lost it very badly.
Sandy,
and
your
different challenges. So therefore, basically, it's just the you have to be in the right place at the right time with the right issue. So therefore, basically, it's just it won't discourage anybody to do it. But somehow, to be the president of the United States, you just have to be at the right time with the right issue, with the right voter sentiment, everything. So therefore, a lot of times it just happened the one that is fitting at that moment the best will win. That doesn't mean that you should not try. You should always try. So therefore, basically, this is my viewpoint of that election, because the public safety becomes a big issue in New York. So therefore, basically, how the police are treated and how do you fund the police and how you get the welfare of the police becomes the biggest issue at that time. So whoever had the best credential of the public safety get elected that time. Sometime in another season, it will be a different thing. So therefore, in politics, you just have to keep trying.
Yeah, I completely agree with Sandy. In politics, one can look at it this way. You've got to run. Asian Americans that run are lucky in a sense that you can design it so that whether you win or lose, you still win. Right?
That's right.
So
yeah, never get discouraged.
Exactly. So two things. One, even if you lose, right? We've seen people who run, right? And they expect to lose. They run to surface an issue. They run, give representation, to attract attention, make it easier for the next person. I've seen people who run knowing that it will probably take more than one try. It will take 2 tries maybe. And and then other people so Asians need to be able to run. I think the early people that I met that ran, some people had too much invested in running. And when they lost, they disappeared forever. And the worst part is that they felt it was so shameful to lose, rather than, like people say, well, when you're in a competition, somebody wins, somebody loses, and it's really no big deal, right? So those would be one of the things that people need to have an ability to, right? To be able to have that sense, like, win or lose or draw or whatever, it's not a big deal, right? So sort of the quality of the mind is the most important, right? How you see things.
So I think just allowed me to, if the participant of this dialogue with everyone, let me just allow me a little bit more time. The time is in 2018, I met Andrew, and then we did something for Andrew. I asked Andrew, what is your goal? Because at that time in 2018, he doesn't feel that he have a much chance. I just want my name to be honored, and people will say, oh, there's a Chinese name running for president. And then his goal is as long as I can be on the debate stage, then I'll be on national TV debating against all the other candidates. That is probably at that time the ultimate goal he achieved. And then he get onto the debate stage, and then he just beat up about, he outlasted 3 governors, 5 senators, and 3 congressmen. And then at that time, the mayor of New York and then mayor of Los Angeles, and then they all fell the wayside. And then he lasted to the last 6. So therefore, it's a really, really a long way to go. So therefore, basically, based on that multiple national debate, I mean, the Chinese space is on the debate and also getting very popular. even though MSNBC tried to ignore him and then try not to get him on the interview area, they even turned off his microphone. That doesn't discourage. It's continue to fight. I think it's us Chinese have a long way to go, but somehow you have to pave the road. So this is exactly what Bridge Road is about. We just need to build a bridge to go to the other side, and then we need to pave the road for everyone. So therefore, don't be discouraged, continue striving, and then this is what exactly the reason why APALI is formed. We just need to build a very solid foundation of this pyramid so other people then climb up to the top. So therefore, it is okay, be the foundation of this pyramid. We will get there sometime.
Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. Never give up. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost 8:40. I think thank you very much, Michael and Sandy. Wonderful talk, wonderful advice on like how to become the civic leaders. Encourage you. You are a great inspiration to all the fellow Chinese American, Asian Americans to serve the community, serve the public. It's really appreciated your experience, your advice, especially your like model. You are the role model.
It's the really role model.
For us. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it. It's an excellent interview. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Looking forward to see you next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.